Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our webinar exploring the crucial role of real-time rendering and visualization in design. We are Trapdoor Creative, a digital experience company and a full-service 3D studio creating cutting-edge interactive experiences, 3D assets, and digital tools. We're thrilled to have you all here today. Thank you to everybody who joined us live or watching on YouTube. At Trapdoor, we have developed a groundbreaking real-time visualization and rendering software built on top of Epic Games' Unreal Engine 5 called Stage. Today, we'll be showcasing how Stage revolutionizes 3D design workflows by offering both speed and fidelity in rendering and visualization. Our CEO, Barry Zundel, will be presenting a demo to illustrate how Stage empowers educators and students, enabling them to achieve unprecedented efficiency and quality in their work. Just as a quick note, we'll leave about 10 minutes at the end of the presentation for questions. So please, as Barry is presenting, type your questions into the chat and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. If you would like additional information about Stage and how you can start using it in your curriculum, I will put my email in the chat along with our Stage Discord link for you all to join. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And so without further ado, this is a little intro of Barry Zundel, our CEO, as I mentioned. And as you can see, he has quite the pedigree of experience. I've been extremely lucky to be working for him for about the past 2 years and learn a lot about 3D and how it impacts the fashion industry, product and industrial design industry, and more. So yeah, without further ado, Barry, you can take it away.
Sounds good. Thanks, Hayden. Appreciate it. First of all, I'm gonna share my screen, so I'll take over here. Let's see here. Get this up here, and then we'll get this over so you guys can all see it. So share screen, and here we go. All right. Everybody see this? Hopefully you can. So I appreciate Hayden giving us a bit of an intro and giving you a chance to get to know who we are a little bit. I'm going to go through that as well. But my name is Barry Zundel. I'm CEO of Trapdoor Creative. Like Hayden said, we are a full-service 3D studio. We specialize in real-time visualization, whether that is helping companies leverage real-time visualization tools, creating pipelines, helping create tool sets, that kind of stuff. But we're really excited today to talk to universities and students and how you can start to leverage this technology in your work. So whether it's through fashion or whether it's any other product that you're trying to do, if you're designing in 3D, we want you to be able to showcase that as realistic as possible with as little effort as possible. And that's really what our goal is. So I'm going to go take you through some slides here just to talk about what we do, who we are, and then we'll get into the software demo really quick. So if we come over here, just a little bit about me. I'm the founder and CEO of Trapdoor Creative. Like Hayden said, I worked in video games at Disney Interactive. I did movies at Pixar, and I worked in product design and development as a 3D lead at Nike. It was an interesting kind of trajectory in my career. And as you guys are, if you're students watching this, there's a lot of things that will happen throughout your career. You put yourself on one track, and throughout your career, you'll kind of move all over the place. And that's awesome. It's great. There's so much to learn and so much to do in this industry, and so much that can be done to really streamline and help the industry move forward. So keep your options open, keep your eyes open for opportunities to leverage your skills across multiple different industries, because you can definitely do that. So that's just a little bit about me and kind of my background. I want to talk about where this all came from, kind of the genesis of what we did at Trapdoor, especially with Stage, because I think it's important for us to understand kind of solving a specific problem was why we did this. So I want to talk about kind of my past here and talk about the understandings from each of those things and how it impacted where we came up with Stage. So working in video games, I was at Disney Interactive for about 10 years, and that allowed us, working in video games, it's very fast iteration. It's full interactivity. So you're moving really quick. You're making changes really fast, and going into the engine and seeing what that looks like, creating builds, like moving really quickly. The tools allow you to do that. The technology allows you to do that. It allows you to kind of interact with your data. So if I'm a character artist, or if I'm an environment artist or something, I can actually make changes in my 3D app and push it straight into the engine. And when I do that, I can see immediately what my result is. Now, this is key to being able to iterate quickly. That fast interaction or iteration cycle means that you can get to those no's quicker. I put this in, oh, that didn't work. I tried this out, no, that didn't work. I tried this out, oh, I like that one, I'm gonna go down that road. And so a lot of times we forget that iteration loop, the faster you can make that move, the faster you're gonna get to the quality that you really want. And so in video games, that was really what we were focused on, is that iteration loop. Being able to interact with that iteration was huge. The other thing was you had customer involvement. The customer that you're dealing with is going to be interacting with your product. And so that was kind of a part of that design process, is how do we allow them to interact with it? What's the goal there? But in the years that I was there, and keep in mind, this is 10, 15 years ago that I left that industry, it's gotten better and better and better. But at the same time, back then, the realism wasn't quite cinema quality. It wasn't quite as good as you would get in a movie, in something that was much higher end. And so that was kind of a downfall of that. So after Disney Interactive, moved over to Pixar. And at Pixar, obviously, it's all about storytelling. It's about making the story as perfect as possible, and then taking the visuals and making them as good as possible. Because when you want to tell that story and you want to convey those visuals, they need to be just spot on. And so, as you can see, I worked on those movies at Pixar. The ones I worked on were mostly Brave. So I worked a lot on Brave. I worked on Toy Story of Terror, which is the one where they get caught in the hotel, a little short for Halloween. And then I spent a lot of time on The Good Dinosaur, which I was in charge of the Mama Dinosaur, the modeling and rigging. And so that really allowed me to see kind of what that pipeline was and the perfection that comes with time, right? Tell that story, make it photoreal, but it's a really slow process. You're not able to iterate as fast as you want to iterate. And the technology is really complicated. It's a complex process. And so even though your visuals are amazing, it's hard to get there. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort to get there. Tools have gotten better. I'm sure at Pixar, tools have gotten faster and better. But still, when you're doing movie quality stuff, that's always taken a really long time to do. And so learned some things from there. Then went to Nike. And at Nike, I was working in product design and development. So really high focused on high detailed product design. I mean, we wanted to see every stitch, the fabric needed to be just right. The sheen on that needed to be just right. The colors needed to be exactly what they needed to be in production, right? That was like kind of hyper realistic and hyper trying to get exactly what we got in real life, because it needed to mimic what we were going to get in real life. So that high detail product design was really important. Fragmented pipeline means that we were using tools all over the place. There wasn't a really good defined pipeline of how that worked. And so you'd use this tool to do this part, and this tool to do this part, and this 3D tool to do this, and this process didn't really do it right, so you had to take it through another one. And it was a really kind of broken system. It worked, but it didn't work very fast. And because it was fragmented and it took a lot of time, you had really slow iteration times. So if we needed to make a change on an outsole of a shoe, we'd have to wait for the model shop to get that done and do the part for it and all of that kind of stuff. And it was really slow. And so it was hard to move really fast in an industry that needed to move really fast. And so that's really where the idea started to come. How do we speed this up? How do we make it more unified? How do we make this pipeline, especially a visualization pipeline, so that it's not limiting to us? Because with a pipeline like that, the problem would be is that you'd say, well, I've got 40 SKUs that I need to get imagery for in the next 2 months or 3 months or whatever it is, or maybe even hundreds. But because of the speed at which you can do it, you end up showcasing only five or six of them because it's so slow. And so your visualization really got limited because of the way that the pipeline was set up, or the tools that would allow you to iterate. So this is like all this information. I know it's a lot, but all this information is kind of where this idea came from. And so as we talk about where Stage came from, Stage came from the good of all these different pieces. So with video games, there's fast iteration, there's full interactivity, there's customer involvement. A customer can manipulate it. With Pixar, it's the ability to tell stories and to set up your cameras and set up cool shots and things like that that really tell the story of the product, and to be as photoreal as possible so that you get a really good idea of what that product is. With Nike, it was high detailed product design. You know, it was, we want to see those stitches, we want to see those that fabric, we want to see that metal, we want to see whatever it is in that product, we want to see those things. And so we brought all these things together and we said, how do we put this into a package or into a software where we get all the good in here? And that's where we really came up with Stage. And so that's where Stage is really coming from. So Stage, like Michael said, Stage is built on top of Unreal Engine 5. And we did that on purpose, mainly because we realized that real-time rendering is the future of 3D visualization. Hitting a button and waiting for a render, one frame of render, works for now. But the future of rendering, the future of visualization is going to be something where you can interact with it. It renders in real time. It looks photoreal. All of those things that make decision-making even faster. And so we decided to go with Unreal Engine and build Stage on top of that. And that means we can leverage everything that Unreal Engine has. We can leverage all of the capabilities, the lighting, the interactivity, all of the things that Unreal has. We can now leverage that in Stage. But one of the things that we wanted to do with Stage is for people who aren't 3D professionals or deep 3D technicians, we wanted to make this process really easy. And we wanted to make it very simple. So what we did is we took Unreal and we took all that capability and we built a skin on top of it. That's not just a skin, but it's a lot of functionality that we built in, custom functionality as well. And this was very targeted towards fashion industry, product industry, doing renders and shots of products and things that you need to get to marketing or whatever it is. And so when we go through the demo, I'll show you all these things that we did. But what it means is that now you can say, well, Unreal Engine is doing these amazing things, but it's so complicated to get in and do it. All this, I have to learn a whole new menu system, a whole new software. Stage allows you to bypass all of that and just go right into doing the things that you need to do. And so especially as a student or universities or freelancer or whatever you're trying to do, Stage allows you to bypass that learning curve. Stage does have a little bit of a learning curve, but we've made it as simple as possible so that you can just jump right in and just get going. And so we're really excited about where that's headed. So this world of 3D and real-time visualization, one of the things that we want you to understand from this is it's not just about fashion, it's not just about product design, it's everything, right? So from industrial design to manufacturing, Web 3.0, VR and AR, marketing, entertainment, like all of these industries feed directly into this 3D world that we live in. And we wanted to build a tool that can bring that all together. And can bring data from many different places into it. So you might be working in vStitcher, you might be working in Blender, you might be working in Cinema 4D, whatever it is. You might be working in Revit, or wherever you're doing your 3D design. We want you to be able to bring that data into Stage to do visualization in real time. So all of these different industries, whether you're in fashion or anything else, can utilize this technology. And we wanted to create a really unified workflow so that no matter what product you're talking about, you can bring it in and you can do these things really easy. So that's kind of the world that we live in. Now, let's talk about the product development process. And this is with fashion, this is with hard goods, this is with whatever. Just an overview of this and why real-time rendering makes such a difference. Because real-time rendering changes the game when it comes to your ability to do visualization. So in this product development process, you've got different pieces of this, different parts of this. First part is design. After you do your design, then you're going to go into sampling, right? And see what that design is really like. So you're going to want to see what a physical sample is. If you're getting samples from a factory, or you're getting samples from 3D printing, or whatever it is, you want to sample that. Then you want to manufacture it, and you want to be able to communicate with your manufacturers back and forth and have that be accurate. You also want to do marketing. So whatever your product is, you want to be able to market that and create imagery around it and tell a story with it, right? And then also you want to be able to do sales. So that 3D product development process needs to go all the way across from beginning to end, and not just be in certain parts of it. Okay. Now, this traditional rendering, when we talk about traditional rendering and not real time, traditional rendering like your V-Ray rendering or your GPU rendering, your key shots, those kinds of things, awesome software, does a great job. But it really only can fit in a couple different places because of the speed that it works. So one of those is in sampling. Like if you want to create a 3D sample, you're going to, color it all up inside of whatever software you're using, and you're going to do a still render of it, or maybe an animation. Even for marketing, you'll do that kind of thing. The problem is it's really slow. Like, to do that, I want to see what this looks like now. I don't want to have to wait overnight, or I don't want to have to wait 2 days to get my animation rendered, right? Even with render farms, if I have to wait 6 hours for an animation to be rendered, I'm losing that 6 hours of design and iteration time. And so it can be really slow. And the other thing is it can get really expensive if you have to have render credits, and you have to have, all kinds of render farms to do it fast. It gets very expensive. And so while traditional rendering is very powerful and very good, when you're trying to move at speed, especially with products, it becomes really limiting to you. And that's where Stage really comes in. So Stage kind of fills that gap and says, hey, let's do all of this, and let's allow you to do visualization across the entire pipeline. So while you're designing and you're sampling and you're manufacturing and you're marketing and you're doing sales, hey, we can do imagery across this whole thing, whether it's animations or interactive experiences or stills or whatever it is. Okay. So how does Stage fit into that? So for design, you want to be able to have live visualization while you're designing. What does my design look like in real life while I'm designing it? Not go through the whole design process, then see what it looks like. See what it looks like while you're designing it. Make changes, make decisions based on what you see while you're designing, rather than just like design and hope that it works out. This means that doing sampling, you can do hyper fast volume rendering. So you could sample a ton of different colorways. You could sample a ton of different options without ever doing a physical sample, because you can visualize that faster and render that so much faster. So Stage feeds into that as well. With manufacturers, you want to be able to do live collaboration and communication with them. If they're developing something in 3D and they're using Stage and you're using Stage, you can share that asset, and you can share those things back and forth and say, this is what we're going to do. What do you think? I can take notes on it. I can make comments and do annotations. It just allows that communication to go a lot faster. Then once you want to do marketing, obviously, the marketing team probably wants imagery right now. And they don't want to come to you and say, hey, we need this image. And you say, give me 2 weeks to do it or to render it. What you want to do is say, yeah, absolutely, we can do that right now. Or you can hand them the asset, and the interface is so easy and the process is easy that they could create it themselves, right? So that makes it so much faster. And then also with sales, we're getting into that mode where sales needs to be interactive. We're pushing that behind us, where it's, I just want to go see a few pictures, a turntable of a front, back, left, right, that kind of thing. I want to actually be able to interact with my product, see my product, visualize it, change it, do it all on the web, like manipulate it in 3D. And Stage allows you to set that kind of thing up. Being in 3D and being able to visualize very quickly and being real time, you can move that data into a real time experience for sales. So all of this, Stage is really meant to go kind of across that entire product development process. So as you're learning this process, as you're learning what each of these are, and as you're trying to develop those pipelines, real-time visualization can fit into all of those and be a huge benefit. So there's 3 main things that we built Stage for. There's speed, there's simplicity, and there's cost savings. Stage is, like I said, built on Unreal Engine 5. We use real-time ray tracing. We also do standard path tracing, so the stuff that you would do in like V-Ray or Keyshot or something like that. We do that inside of Stage, but we also use real-time ray tracing, which is, I'll show you here in the demo. Simplicity is key. when a tool gets so complicated and that there's a big ramp, it's hard to get new people on it. It's hard to create things in it. It takes more time than it should. And so we made it super simple. So we wanted it to be super fast. We wanted it to be super simple. And we also wanted you to have cost savings. We don't want you to have to feel like, oh, to visualize this, it's going to cost me a ton of money because I have to pay for a ton of render credits, or I have to pay for a render farm, or whatever it is to get it done on time. If I can be fast, I can be and simple, I can save money. And so really the design of Stage is built to accelerate your workflow. So those are the really big benefits of using something like Stage versus a traditional render engine. One of our good friends at Patagonia, Ian Finch, said this about it, and he's talking specifically about vStitcher because of the integration that we have. But he says the vStitcher and Stage integration advances any digital product creation pipeline. Any brands looking to render decision-making assets at speed would find Stage a compelling visualization tool. The software is intuitive and provides a low barrier of entry for any apparel teams looking to be able to leverage Unreal Engine and its capability. So we really thank Ian for this this comment, because this is really what we were trying to do with Stage. We want it to be a really beneficial visualization tool that you can communicate with. And you don't have to learn a really hard, complicated program to do that next. So, as we've worked with companies, fashion brands, other companies, we've really tried to help them transition their workflow to be much more streamlined, much more simple, much more fast, and utilizing that real-time rendering to do it. So, great comment by Ian Finch from Patagonia. So now let's move into our Stage demo really quick. And so I'm going to switch this off here. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go over here to, this is in vStitcher. Now, keep in mind that I'm going to show vStitcher and I'm going to show some other things, but Stage is meant as a very generic tool that will import OBJ, FBX, GLTF, GLB, Datasmith, USD is coming, animation is coming. So there's a lot of things that we can pull in from different products. So whether you're working in vStitcher or Blender or Maya or Cinema 4D or whatever you're doing, you can bring that data into Stage to render. But I just want to show you real quick from a vStitcher standpoint how we get data over into Stage and how this works. So Stage is a standalone application. It's not a plugin. It's a standalone application on its own. And we have a plugin that goes with vStitcher, but that doesn't mean you can't use it with other programs. So we want to make sure that you understand that, like, if you're working on objects in Blender, or you want to import something from Clo or something like that, you can always do that. But we do have an automated plugin system with vStitcher, and that's exclusive to vStitcher in the fashion space. So I just want to show you real quick, and I won't go into all of the details in the plugin. We can do that later in maybe another call if you guys have interest in seeing more on this, because I want to get into the meat of what Stage does on its own. But I just want to show you the capabilities here. So I have this outfit here inside of vStitcher, and I want to get that into Stage to render. So I just go up to my plugins, I say Stage, and I say I have open in Stage, which allows me to push that data, and it opens Stage, and there it is in Stage. I can also open a lineup in Stage, which is push all my colorways, all my variants over at the same time and line them all up so I can see them all at the same time. I can also render with Stage. So you can actually come in here and, utilizing the render in Stage plugin here, I can pick all my colorways. I can pick a bunch of camera angles. I can do everything. I can set it all up, and then I can use Stage on the back end to do all my rendering here. We can go into detail a little bit more later about that, but you can see, like, I can pick where I want to render it, local or on the cloud. I can pick all my colorways. I can pick my render settings. I can add still images to it with all the camera settings that I've set up. I can add animation settings, so I can pick what animations I want to show, all that kind of, or render all that kind of stuff inside of here. And then I can automate that whole thing straight from vStitcher without even opening Stage. So this allows you to work really quickly and really efficiently getting data over to Stage. We have a Rhino plugin that we're working on in beta right now, but also from any other package, if you just export one of the correct file types, so FBX, OBJ, GLTF, GLB, Datasmith, and coming soon USD, you can just open those straight inside of Stage. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go plugins, open in Stage, and this is going to send data over to Stage. Now, this is, once again, this is opening Stage as a standalone application. This is not a plugin for vStitcher. We have a plugin for vStitcher, but Stage on its own is just its own software. Okay. So what you're seeing here, what you're going to see here when it opens is full real time. So this is all being rendered in real time, just like a video game. And when we talk about real time, just so we're clear on this, in real time, think about a video game versus a movie. A movie is more like your offline rendering, where you would hit a button and it renders those images one at a time, and then you put those into a movie, right? If I go watch a movie and I want to change Merida's hair, if I'm watching Brave and I want to change her hair from orange to purple, I can't just do that. I can't click a button and have the movie change immediately. I have to go back through and render that whole thing all over again. Real-time rendering is Fortnite, right? It's your video game. So it's, I want to change my character's hair right now. Click, done, and it works right there, and I can just keep moving. So Stage is built as a real-time render visualization engine. So it works just like a video game. So now I'm going to click in here, and I'm just going to rotate this, as you can see. And if I come in here, you can see she's actually looking around. She's going to blink. You know, all of this is live. The lighting is live. The scene is live. All the data that came over from vStitcher is live. So if you can see here, here is my design inside of vStitcher. Here is my design now in Stage. Okay, and I can see what this looks like now. I want to start talking. I want to kind of jump into Stage here as a standalone app and what you can do with it. Because keep in mind that with Stage, like I said, you can import a bunch of different file types. So OBJs, FBX, GLTF, GLB, Datasmith, all of those will come in. So if you're working in vStitcher or you're working in some other package, you can bring that in. You can come in from another package and bring that data in. So once you do that, I want to start playing around with the scene and interacting with it and doing things with it, because maybe I want to change the lighting, maybe we want to change the scene, maybe I want to create some animations, maybe I want to do some renders. And so that's where this really comes in handy. So let me get into this, into kind of the meat of Stage. And like I said, we're about a half hour in. We're going to do about 20 minutes, and then we'll leave about 10 minutes at the end for some questions if anybody has any questions that they put in the chat. So I'm just going to run through this with you real quick and show you some of the features of what Stage can do. First thing is, I talked about models already, so you've got those file types. But the first thing is scenes. Now, we wanted these scenes to be as realistic as possible, and something that you can use to put your data in and give it an environment and give it a scene that you can use. And so we have different scenes in here, and I've downloaded a bunch of them. We have what's called DLC, or downloadable content, in Stage. So if I click that, you'll see right here, you've got scenes. These are all the scenes that come with Stage, right? You've also got some metahumans, which is what you see right here. So this metahuman that you see right here, we got two packs of them, and those work with vStitcher. So if you're working in vStitcher and you want to simulate on an avatar that'll come into Stage, this is what they look like inside of vStitcher, and then this is what they look like inside of Stage. Okay. So in vStitcher, I can come here, go to plugins, and I can say Stage avatars, and then it will load it up and show me all the available avatars and the poses and all that kind of stuff that I have. And you can see that right here. So I can just come down here and see all these avatars. Okay. So let's go back over to Stage. So we have in the DLC, we have these metahumans. We also have HDRs. So these are high dynamic range images to surround and light your scene that I can switch to. And we also have some material packs. So there's a basic material, and then there's like some automotive materials, but the automotive one actually has a lot of great stuff for everything. It's got all kinds of metals, plastics, leathers, like all kinds of stuff that can be used. These will grow as Stage grows, to have a lot more DLC and ability to bring a lot more data into it. But one note on that is that with DLC, we can actually create custom DLC for companies or organizations that want something very specific for themselves, and then we can put it in that DLC. So this, for example, is just the sweep, and you can see it's a full 3D scene. It's like being in a warehouse and having this big sweep here that you can do photography against, right? So this whole thing is in 3D. It's all live, and so I can switch between scenes. So if I come here and I say, well, I want to go to this, high-tech runway. Now I'm here on this like high-tech runway right here. Just switch that scene. If I want to go outside to like some tennis courts, I can do that. I'm going to turn the lighting off just so you can see. So it's got, real sunlight going on in these. Okay. Or let's say I want to go out into like a wet warehouse, like an old warehouse. And I'm going to turn some lighting back on so you can see. But now I'm like a concrete floor, some puddles around, some really cool lights, some things like that. that I can do. But all these allow you to change your scenes. So I'm going to go back to that sweep scene. Actually, yeah, we'll go back to that sweep scene. So we can start here. Now that I have scenes, right, I want to go into lighting. I want to see what I can do with lighting. So lighting is really intuitive here, and it's meant to be exactly like in real life. So if I come to lighting, I have a bunch of light setups that come with stage. So they're just kind of defaults that come with stage. So whether it's 3-point, butterfly, high spot, any of these ones, they all come with stage. But what you can do is you can actually create your own. So I said create new. It turns off all the lights that were in the scene, except maybe there's a really light one up top so you can just kind of see where you're at. But if I go to lighting here, now I can go into my light rig editor down here. I'm going to name it. So we'll call it webinar lights, like this. And I can pick from a list of the light types that I want. I can pick a softbox, so a nice big box light that gives me really good diffuse lighting. I can pick an overhead light, which is like something you do for like a car, you know, a big overhead light that gives you this really nice shine. Also beauty dish, which is kind of like a round, almost spotlight that does really good if you're doing portraits. And then also a version 2 of a softbox, which gives you a little bit different effect. I'm just going to pick a softbox here, and I'm going to say add it to my scene. And then you'll notice I have this manipulator. Now you can't see lighting, but if you hit L on the keyboard, the light turns on. And now you have a target where you can move this target like this, where the light's going to be. So I'm just going to put it there. You can also grab the manipulator and move the light around. And as you can see, that lighting is giving me very realistic lighting. So it's giving me really diffuse shadows, soft shadows. This is all being calculated in real time. So it's all giving you that really hyper-realistic lighting, but all in real time where you don't have to click, I'm going to render it or try to render it or wait for the render to resolve. I can just see it immediately. So I can set this up. Maybe this is my key light that I want like this. I'm going to duplicate that light, move it over here. This is kind of my fill light over here. So I'm going to bring the height down a little bit, maybe turn the intensity down just a little bit like this. Okay. And then grab it and drag it out so it's a little more like this. It's my fill. And then I want a rim light. So I'm just going to duplicate. I'm going to click on this one, duplicate it again, pull it back over here, right? Put the height up a bit so it's a little higher. Turn the intensity way up like that. So now I've got kind of a 3-point light setup, and I can turn the lights on and off just by hitting L. So now you can see I've got this, you know, this light setup that I really like, and it was that easy to set it up. And so this, I can create as many light rigs as I want. I can change colors, all the stuff on the lights that we won't go into. But once again, if I click on that light and show it, I have all these options that I can set on those lights. Okay, so I can set up as many light rigs as I want, and have different types. And I can also switch between those really quickly. So if I come back over here in lighting and I go to let's go to butterfly. There's my butterfly lighting right there. Okay, so real quick and easy to make your lighting setups. Now let's move into, I'm going to come back to animation in just a minute, but I want to come into the camera settings, because I think the camera is one of those things that we're really focused on in stage, of trying to make the camera as good as it can be, realistic as possible. And so I'm going to switch the lighting back over to that 3-point right here. And then I'm going to hit C on my keyboard. I can either do that, or I can just hit camera settings right here. Okay, I turned it off, turn it back on. You can notice here's all my settings for my camera. What I'm looking at in stage is my camera. And so I can do things like changing the angle, I can change the pitch, I can change the location, in and out, left, right, up, down, all that kind of stuff. I can change the focal length. So this is actually like zooming on your camera, like taking a lens and zooming it. I can change the distance, which is actually dollying in, so it's moving the camera, right? I can also change the focus on it, the focal offset on it. So let's say I wanted to have a shot that was like this, and I wanted to have some good depth of field. I can change the autofocus, turn it off, and I can say show my focal plane, and then I can move that focal plane wherever I want. So let's say I want it right here at shoulder, so it's right here, but I want it to kind of fade off where that's not the case. So I can change the aperture to something really low. Let's go 2.4, right? And all of a sudden, when I show that camera, or when I do that, you'll notice now I have this really nice kind of this blur away from that shoulder. So I'm getting really good depth of field in this. So you can see what that looks like. So I get immediate depth of field that works right out of the box. Okay, so I can do all that kind of stuff with the camera. I can even do visual effects with the camera, like bloom, exposure, chromatic aberration, lens flares, image vignetting. All of these things play with, and you can play with, and you can see how realistic you can make it. we want these renders you do to look like they came out of a camera rather than CG. And so a lot of these things are meant to do that, like the image vignetting and also like chromatic aberration. It gives you that little bit of lens distortion. If you can see it right here, I've got that little red fringe right along the edge here. So what that does, it just makes your eye go, oh, this is coming from a camera rather than coming from a 3D render. So there's all kinds of things that you can do there. The other thing that you can do with the camera, and I'm going to switch this back just so it's a little more clear. The other thing that you can do with the camera is camera presets. So you can store the data for the camera at any point and save that and come back to it. So for example, if I wanted to create a shot that was like this, I can come in here and I can save all this stuff and I can go, okay, I've got it set up exactly how I want. I can come in and hit P for preset, or just go like this and go to view preset. And I can call it like 3/4 top right view, like this. And I can hit OK. Now, what I can do is I can get the camera exactly where I want. I can say I want to save the camera settings. So that's all of this and all the visual effects right here. And I also want to store the orientation of the object, because if I move it, I want it to come back to that. So I can do this. And so now I've saved the camera and this. And if I come out and I do anything, and let me just rotate her like this. Now I can come back and click that view preset, and it goes right back and puts everything back where it was. So view presets are just like lighting presets. You can store the camera, store the data, everything there, and you can save that, which makes it really nice to set up things that you want to do over and over again. So if you have views of things that you want to do over and over again, that's how you do it. Okay. So that's like cameras, camera presets, lights, light presets. Let's talk now about let's talk about animation real quick. Animation in Stage is meant to be really simple and easy. And animation is meant to be something where if you want to do something really complex, you're not trying to do it in Stage. You're going to do that somewhere else. But what you do want to do is create something that's really simple and easy. So let's talk about a turntable. Let's say you want to do a turntable of your object. This is my camera that I'm looking through, right? So I'm looking through my camera, and I want to do a turntable right here. What I can do is I can actually click on her, say animation, create new. We'll just call it webinar turntable. Webinar turntable, like that. I can tell it how long I want the animation to be. Let's say 10 seconds. And I'm going to say, okay, I want the camera to be right here. So I'm going to keyframe the camera here and here because it doesn't move, start and end. But then I want to keyframe her at right here at the start. But then I want to rotate her 360 degrees at the end and keyframe that. And now if I just use these little eyeballs, I can go back to that first frame, back to that end frame, right? And I can hit play, and it will play this animation for me. So now I haven't rendered anything, but it's playing it at 60 frames a second right in front of me, doing all the ray traced lighting and everything. Okay. So really quickly, you can see how fast this can go when I'm trying to do these kinds of things. Now, I can also choose in that turntable, do I want smooth interpolation or do I want linear interpolation? And that's like an ease in, ease out. So you can see if I switch it to smooth and hit play, she slowly starts turning and then accelerates and then slowly ends turning, right? So that will just, that does it that way. So I can pick in my animation what I want. So that's really how you set up animations. Now, if I wanted to render this, all I do is I click the render tab, or render right here, takes me to the render tab, I click go, and we're good. But let's say I want to do another animation and I want to do it like a hero shot or something like that, like a highlight shot. Well, I can close this, I can come in, and it stored that. So now I can come in here and I can say create new, and we'll call it webinar hero 1, like this. And I'm going to make it 10 seconds long. And I'm going to set up my camera so it starts right here, kind of on her pants at the bottom. And I'm going to keyframe her and the camera. And then I'm going to move the camera, and I'm going to end it up right here with her and the camera. And now if I hit play, here's my 10-second animation, right? That is highlighting, or a hero shot for that outfit. Really quick and easy to make. Once again, I can choose smooth, linear. I can it will keyframe all of the visual effects and the camera settings and all that kind of stuff if I wanted to change the camera between one and the other frame. So now I have these animations that I can work with and render them. If I want to do a still image, all I have to do is set my camera, right? If this is the shot that I want, let's go back to this other one. Let's go back to our preset and do a shot from that. So I'm going to go back to view presets. I'm going to pull it down, and I'm going to call it, it was webinar, wasn't it? What did I call it? I forgot what I called it. Anyways, let's do this. Let's call it, I think I called it 3/4 top right view right there. I loaded it in, I hit the view preset right there, and it takes me right back there. Now I want to do a render of it. Okay, all I have to do is come up to render, come here, and now in my render dialog up here, I've got a few different things that you'll be able to do with the render. I can choose a still, I can choose movie, or I can choose batch, and we'll talk about each one of those. Quick render is something else that's coming very soon, but we'll talk about these three. Still, you can pick your resolution. You can also type in your resolution that you want. You can pick which quality you want. Most of that quality is going to be in the anti-aliasing along the edges. So if you pick low, it's going to be really nice, but it may be a little bit jagged if you zoom in. If you go high, it goes a lot higher resolution than that anti-aliasing. But you can pick, do I want an alpha channel? Do I want it to just be the object? Do I want to use path tracing? Now, path tracing is like your traditional V-Ray or cycles in Blender rendering or something like that. So I could turn those on if I want. Also, do I want to auto frame it? Auto framing is it takes the object that you've got and it will zoom the camera out until it fits within that frustum. So if I have a shot like this, I don't necessarily want auto frame because I want to focus in on that shot. And then the other thing is show lights or not. Do I want to show the lights in the render or not? And when I talk about showing lights, it's not the lights affecting the render. It's just showing like the light stands, things like that. Sometimes you want them just to make it look like a photo shoot. Sometimes you don't. Then you can name your output and tell it where it's going to go, right? So I can come here and I'll just say desktop renders, okay. And I can just say render local. Now, this is going to render right here. Now, one thing you noticed is that my render resolution was different than my viewport. My viewport is set up kind of like a 16:9, but my render resolution was 1400 by 600. If I go into render, oops, like this, render, 1400 by 600. And I don't want that. That's not how I set up my camera. If I wanted to set my camera up like this, I can go into my camera and go to this aspect ratio right here and then pick the still resolution. And now it's showing me what that resolution is and what that aspect ratio is for it. So that way I can just set it up exactly how I want. Now, let's say I wanted to fix it for that aspect ratio. I can go right here, fix it, and then I can say key model, key camera. And now that one is set up exactly for this, okay? So now if I go to render and I go to it, it's picking that 1400 by 600 and it's going to render and it's going to go like this, okay? And it's going to render that perfectly for me. But what you saw right there was a fully ray traced render rendered in about half a second, okay? And that's how fast a still goes. Now, let's go back to that animation and do render an animation, okay? So I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back to that animation. We're going to call it, we called it, where was it? Webinar Hero, okay? So now I'm going to go back to that animation and edit it right here. It's going to show up right here. And now if I hit play, you'll notice that it changed because my aspect ratio is set up 4:3. But I don't want that. I want it to go back to off. So now here it is back the way it was. So now if I hit play, here it is right here. And I'm going to go render it. Takes me to this movie tab. I want it 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames a second. Low render quality is fine because it's moving. So it's not, we don't have to worry about the anti-aliasing that much. And I'm just going to leave it this way. And so now I'm going to go here and I'm going to go webinar renders and we're going to call it Webinar Hero 1 like this. Okay. And then I'm going to render this. So this is how fast it goes. So I'm going to click render. This is a 10-second animation at 60 frames a second. So you're rendering 600 frames of animation that you can see down here. And this is how fast it goes. So depending on your hardware, I'm running on an NVIDIA 3090 Ti with 24 gigs of RAM. So it's a generation behind. It's not a 4000 series, but that's how fast that animation went. And now if I come here and go to desktop, webinar renders right here. Here is the render that I just created. And I'll move this over here so you can see it. There's my render, 60 frames a second. There's my MP4 ready to go. So super fast, I was able to create those animations and set those up. Now, last thing before we jump into questions and answers, I want to talk about batch rendering. Because one of the things that we realized with Stage is, yeah, I can do a render of one thing really fast, but what if I want to do a render of a bunch of different camera shots, lots of different views, multiple animations, all of that kind of stuff all together at the same time? And that's where batch rendering comes in. So remember we talked about light, we talked about light presets, we talked about scenes, we talked about camera presets, we talked about animation presets. All of those things feed into batch rendering. And so if I come over here to my render dialog once again, and I go to batch render, now what I have is I have this whole system where I can set up multiple render jobs. And those render jobs right here, you'll notice I have a bunch of them set up already. Okay. But for example, this one right here called front. I created that one, and then I opened it up, and it gives me all the same options that my render dialog does. So I can pick if it's a still or a movie. I can say what resolution I want it, what render quality do I want it at, am I getting an alpha mask, or am I going to be auto framing it, all of these things. And then I can also, inside of here, I can change the scene. I can change the lighting by using my presets. I can even change the view preset. This one is using the front view preset. And then from a naming standpoint, I can actually use these curly brackets with these hints to give it automatic naming. So that could be model name, colorway name, output width and height, frame rate, if it has alpha or not, all these different things that you can use to name it correctly, so you don't have to go through and manually name everything, and especially when that changes a lot. So each one of these jobs is basically like doing a render on its own, but now what I can do is I can stack those jobs. So let's say I've got front, back, left, right, and I also want that hero shot in my batch render. So I set up all these, right? The only difference in these is that it's using a different camera preset, okay? But they're all going to the same place. And I'm gonna come down here, and I'm just gonna create a new one. If you see this, job name, let's call it Webinar Hero 1. Now, it's gonna be a movie, so I just say movie, I open this up, I go to resolution, I want it 1920 by 1080, but it's going to be 60 frames a second. It can be low. I don't care about any of this stuff, and I'm going to use the current scene and the current lighting that I have. But my animation, I'm now going to pick Webinar Hero right there. Okay. Now the output file, I'm just going to call it. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to call it Webinar Hero 1. I'll use that same name, and it's going to say, do you want to replace it? It's actually not going to replace it. It's going to put a 1 at the end of it, so it won't do that, okay? So now I've got them all set up right here, and I've got the ones ticked that I want on. So I want a front, back, left, right, and I want an animation at the end of it. I'm going to tell it to output all to the same folder. So we'll come here, we'll go to desktop, demo, webinar, renders right here. And then I want to override the 1000 by 1000 resolution of the stills to 2000 by 2000. Okay, so I just type that in here, and now we're going to hit render. I'm gonna hit go, and you'll notice it's rendering with an alpha channel. It's rendering at 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels for each one of that. That was front. This is back. We're getting a right here, and we're going to get a left. And then once this is done, it's going to kick into that animation. So now you'll see now it's rendering that animation for me. Okay. So now when this is done, okay, I'll show you the folder that this comes into. So as soon as this one's done, now I've got all those renders all together with my animation, okay, and it says done. So I got front, back, left, right in high resolution with alpha, with the video and everything, probably in about 25 to 30 seconds. And here are all my files. So now I've got all of these files, right? These have alpha channels, and I can just toggle through each one of these. So these all have alpha to them, okay? And then I can come out, and here was the original one that I rendered, and here's the one from the batch render, and it just added that little 2 on the end of it, okay? So really quickly, batch rendering can really just explode your capability of doing the visualization. There's so much more to show in here. Lastly, in just a couple minutes, I just want to show you a couple little things about materials. You can open up this material library. Once you download it, there's a few fabrics in here, but you can drag and drop. So if I drag and drop this here, you see there's a new fabric on it there. If I wanted velvet on this one, I can do that. This will change if I click on here and go to materials. It shows me all my materials on that object. Now, each one of those is a panel, right? But if I click on it, it'll show me that material. So now I can see what that material is. I can go in that material and edit it. I can change all kinds of stuff from like roughness min, roughness max. We're going to turn that roughness way down like this. So now it's more shiny. So you can really go in and you can tweak these if you want to and just drag and drop materials on it. So that's materials. There's also annotations. So if I want to come in here and take some notes, I can go into annotations, put my, I'm like, let's say I go, oh, I don't like this seam right here. Put my mouse here, hit N, it puts a pin on that. I can name this whatever I want to. So like seam left leg, left, yeah, that's left leg. Change the color on it to yellow. come in here and I want to add a note. So I can say, here's my title, fix this scene, do whatever, you know. And then I can also save the camera view. So I can say like, save the camera view right here. This is the way I want it to look. Save it, save that. And now I've got a note right in here with all that information. It's got my information, when I did it, all of that kind of stuff. And so you can take annotations. And now if I was to share this GLB with that annotation file to somebody else and they open it in Stage, it's going to have all that annotation with me. So there's just lots of things that you can do with Stage, but the key is speed. Really, the true key of this is all about speed. It's about allowing you to take your 3D object, whatever you're doing, pull it in, and make sure, and just move very quickly, creating your visualization. So we're really excited to get this in the hands of students, in the hands of universities, and let you really go crazy with it. Like I said, if you want to get in contact with us or with Browseware about licenses for that, we would love to get you hooked up and get you going on it, and really start to expedite your capabilities. So we really appreciate everybody being here today. There's so much that we could show in Stage, but we have limited time. But really appreciate all your participation. So I think we'll open it for some, Hayden, if we want to open it up for some questions, if there are any, and if not, that's totally fine as well.
Yeah, it looks like there aren't any questions in the chat, so we'll just wrap up. Again, like Barry mentioned, if you want any additional information on pricing or how to get started with Stage, reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly at haydenlove at Trapdoor, or hayden.love at trapdoorcreative.com. Also, be sure to join our Discord. I'll put both my email and our Discord link in the description on the YouTube channel. But other than that, thank you for joining, and hopefully we'll chat with you guys soon.
Thanks so much, everybody. We really appreciate it. Have a great day.